Hi, I'm Michelle Myers, owner of Myers Cross Training, a unique business that combines physical and spiritual fitness. In this video, I'd like to give you just a few simple tips that I think would really help you if you are looking to start your own faith-based business. So tip number one is stay secure in your calling. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you want to start a faith-based business, chances are there was a point in time when you felt like that was what God was calling you to do. And so when those gut check, tough moments come, you've got to remind yourself of that moment when God called you to this. It's bigger than just a feeling or an emotion or a vocation. This is a calling that God has placed on your life. So how do you stay secure in it? Well, number one, you've got to stay connected to God's word, and you've got to stay connected to Him through prayer. You've got to ask Him to continue to give you direction and continue to evolve the calling that He has placed on your life, and that He will continue to guide you, and asking for that every single day. It's got to be His guidance, because if it's a ministry, God has to be the one leading it. In addition to reading the Bible, I also recommend that you read books by other Christian leaders. That may not be in the exact line of work that you're in, but they're also leading a faith-based business. Learning from them, their mistakes, what God is teaching them, you can feel like you have this network around you and pull from their resources. The next thing that I would encourage you to do is to make sure that you're also staying current in your current field. So for example, I try and stay current in what's going on the latest in fitness and nutrition. And it's because not only has God called me to do His work, but in the specific ministry that I'm in, I also want to be an expert in the other element of my business. And so continue that leadership growth as well as just staying current in your field and connected to Christ, and that will ultimately help you to stay committed and to stay passionate to the calling that God has placed on your life. Okay, so tip number two, what do I mean by a wide spectrum support group? Well, basically what I mean is you need to have people that come from different walks of life who have different strengths that can all speak truth into your life. Basically what I'm saying is you need to have a support group that don't all think like you. They all need to be people that you respect for sure, but they need to have different areas of expertise that they can speak truth into about your business. Now, within that variety, I still think that every person needs to be a professing Christian so that they can understand your mission. Obviously, an unbeliever or somebody with a different faith background is not going to agree with your mission, so there's going to be a constant roadblock there. But you need to have somebody who's older than you, as well as someone who's a little bit younger than you. You need to have people that are in traditional ministry, as well as people that are in traditional business. So these all need to be people to where you can say, hey, listen, this is what God's calling me to do. This is an area that I really respect you in. Will you please hold me accountable? And if you ever see anything that I'm doing that's questionable, would you please call me out on it? So they can't be people that are afraid of conflict. They've got to be people that are willing to come to you when you're out of line. I'm super thankful for these people in my life, and I'm constantly calling and saying, hey, listen, what do you think about this? I really value and respect your opinion. Because when you do that, you're respecting not only your ministry, not only your business, but you're respecting the God that you're trying to honor, because you're making sure and you're jumping through extra hoops to make sure that what you're doing is honoring to Him as much as possible. Because at the end of the day, no matter how great our intentions are, we're still human. We're still going to think things that may not be the best idea. So I'm all about accountability. I encourage it in all areas of your life, but your business shouldn't be any different. Okay, so our first two tips were easy to talk about. These next two are going to be a little bit harder. So tip number three, you've got to decide if God's calling you to a business or a charity, because you can't be both. Now, does it mean that your business can't every once in a while be charitable? Absolutely not. But is your business designed to make money? Is this going to provide for your family? Or is it going to be a nonprofit ministry? Because people love free stuff. people love handouts, and that's great. And I think that every business should have a charitable element. But if you're trying to do this to provide for your family and you're constantly giving things away for free, then you're taking away from your paying customers, which is bad business. For example, I used to be a personal trainer. And so an example that I use a lot is it would be like if someone had paid for personal training sessions with me, and during that session, just another random gym member kept coming up to me and asking me questions, and I kept diverting my attention from my paying client. And so that's why I have things like a blog and a Facebook page where I can post general tips that are helpful to anybody, whether they're my customer or not. But when it boils down to who gets my mind versus who gets my time, my paying customers are the ones who get the majority of my time. Anybody can have a piece of my mind. Anybody can have free tips and advice and motivation. That's fine. But my paying customers do get the majority of my time. And so you've got to make that decision to treat your business like a business if it's a business, or treat your business like a charity, because any business that's treated like a charity will fail. So you've got to know where to divide those lines and where to create those boundaries. And so here's where it gets a little bit sticky, because if a ministry makes money, then all of a sudden, sometimes people think that that's bad because money is evil. Well, it's not. Money is not evil. The love of money is evil. In my personal life, I've had several people who have questioned the fact that I have a ministry, yet it's how I make money. Because you're going to hear things like you're using your faith to make money. And I'm the first person to tell you, yes, I make money doing what I do, but I also don't advertise how we spend that money. And this is for training purposes, so I'm not trying to brag, but the money that I make goes to pay off debt of school loans that have enabled my husband and I to do the ministries that God has placed in our life, to put away for Noah, for his education and for his future, and to bless other people. We very rarely spend money on frivolous things because we feel like God has called us to be good stewards. But it's really awesome to be able to bless people financially. It's never something that James or I have been able to do. And this business has enabled us to bless other people financially, to where when we have friends that are going on mission trips, we have money in our account to where we can say, hey, listen, here's money to put towards your trip. Or when we know that there's a family that's hurting and they don't have money to provide a great Christmas for their family, we can hand them a check and say, hey, listen, make this a Christmas your family will never forget. I'm not saying that to toot my own horn, but if God has called you to a business, there are a lot of great things that you can do for Him with the money that He blesses you with when He's the one to drive your business. Anyone who's ever talked to me, who've ever asked me, what's the mission statement of your business? It has nothing to do with money. My mission is to help as many people as I possibly can without expecting anything in return. But with that mindset, I've been blown away with what God has been able to do for us financially. So again, if God has called you to a business, know that there are great things that you can do with the money that He blesses you with. And if God has called you to a charity, there are amazing things that you can do with that as well. You just can't be both. You've got to decide what He's called you to do, embrace that calling, and go after it with everything that He's given you. So there are two types of persecution that I want to talk about. But first of all, persecution is promised. Every time that persecution is talked about in relationship to Christianity in the Bible, it's always used with words like when. It's not if you face trials, it's when you face trials, this is what you should do. So you should expect persecution. So the two different types, obviously you're going to expect persecution from non-believers. So for example, let's say you and your wife are both physical therapists and you want to start a physical therapy office for children where people come and bring their kids for therapy, and while they're doing therapy, parents can have a Bible study, and during the therapy, the children are being encouraged with Bible verses and different teachings from God's Word. you're going to have people who call you and they say things like, your office is the most convenient to my house, and I would love to bring my kid to your office because it would be the easiest for me, but I just don't want your faith shoved down my throat. So I think that you should have an option where people don't have to be exposed to all that Jesus stuff. So, for example, I can tell you in my business, I get people all the time who will comment on or send me a message on social media, and they'll say things like, I love your fitness and your nutrition tips, but I just wish that you could tone that Jesus stuff down a little bit because I don't believe like you do, and I really don't like hearing all of your different faith beliefs. Well, I can't really tone Jesus down because this is a business that I feel like he's called me to do, and he's a big part of it. And so I always am appreciative that people enjoy my fitness and nutrition tips, but if they can't at least agree to disagree with me on my faith, then they're probably going to need to just dislike my page because my faith is always going to be a part of it, and I really make no apologies for that. And so this again goes back to why you have to be secure in your calling, because those times are going to come. But those emails, honestly, they used to bother me a lot more, and now they really don't, and it's not because I don't hurt for them, but it's because I've recognized that you can't expect unbelievers to act like believers. So you have to expect that they're going to come at you with those behaviors and that they might say things that are a bit spiteful or hateful. And so when that happens, know that they're just acting like they believe. So expect unbelievers to act like unbelievers. So that brings me to my last and final point, and honestly, I think this is probably the hardest part to deal with when you are involved in a faith-based ministry. The second part of persecution that you're going to endure are going to be from your own Christian brothers and sisters. And these are going to be the people that they maybe aren't as passionate about the additional part of your business. For me, this could be Christians that don't think that health is that important, or they think that it's silly that I try to combine these crazy workouts with spiritual discipline. And most of the time what I found is that most of the attacks that I get from Christian brothers and sisters are pretty passive aggressive. They'll post something pretty snarky, but then they'll put a smiley face right after it. Like that's going to completely negate what they've just posted or imply that they're joking. But everybody knows there's always a little bit of truth when people joke. So how do you handle when you get unbeliever behavior from someone who is a professing believer? Well, I believe that you have two options, and you have to really pray about it and decide what is best. The number one option that you have is going with the principles that are taught in Matthew 18. Are you going to go directly to that person, explain to them how they have wronged you, and hope that you can move on in a more positive direction? If you're going to go in that option, this needs to be somebody that you already have an established relationship with. It needs to be somebody that there's mutual respect and you really feel like coming out of that conversation, there can be restoration and you can move forward. So that's really what you would do for somebody that you have a current relationship with. But let's say that this is someone who's merely an acquaintance. Maybe you used to have interaction with them on a regular basis, but now you're just kind of connected via social media and they're not a part of your everyday life. You've got to ask yourself, is this conversation, if I have a Matthew 18 based conversation with them, you've got to go to Paul's writing where he teaches all things are permissible, but not all things are beneficial. Is it permissible to go to a believer with a concern when they're not acting like a believer? Absolutely. But is it going to be beneficial? Maybe not. So maybe you just have to start deleting their comments and not responding to them, and pray that the Holy Spirit will convict them and that somebody else maybe have an opportunity to speak truth into their life if they display the same kind of behavior towards someone that they currently have a relationship with. This is where this whole video can kind of come full circle. It's why it's so important that you have to be secure in your calling and that you have to have a support group that you can go to. Not in a gossipy way, but just somebody that you can say, hey, listen, this is is what I'm dealing with and I need some counsel, I need some advice. Or that you can say, okay, God, I know that you've called me to this. I know that this is a unique ministry. I know that not everyone may recognize this as a ministry, but I know what you've called me to do. I know what I'm doing with the resources that you've given me, and I'm trusting you that you are going to do great things with this because I know that you wouldn't call me to waste your time and your resources.